This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
What if my eggs don't fertilize?
Okay, so when you go through an IVF cycle, obviously one of the major parts of it is the collection of eggs. On the day that the eggs are collected, they will be fertilized with your partner's sperm or the donor sperm, and the scientists the next morning will check whether fertilization has occurred. In most cases, fertilization will occur in about 60 to 70% of eggs collected. So if you've got 10 eggs collected, it's likely that 6 or 7 of them will fertilize. There is, however, a wide range, and it may be that 10 out of 10 fertilize, or it may be, and it happens in about 1 in 100 to 1 in 200 cases, no fertilization occurs. It's a very disappointing situation, because obviously you've been through all the injections, you've been through the procedure to collect the eggs, the sperm's been put with the eggs, and nothing has happened. Why does that happen? Why might this happen? Well, obviously to get fertilization in a standard IVF process, which basically involves putting 50,000 sperm with each egg and letting nature actually then deal with it. So one sperm has to attach itself to the egg, go through the outer membrane of the egg to produce fertilization. And when that is not possible, when the sperm doesn't bind to the egg and it doesn't enter the egg, then we're not going to get fertilization. That situation is very, very rare, but it can be due to a sperm problem, or it may be, in fact, an egg problem as well. We don't really understand it. That's doing it naturally, allowing that fertilization process to occur naturally. But the alternative, and what we would be doing in a subsequent cycle, would be called ICSI, where we make sure fertilization occurs, in that we put a sperm specifically inside the egg. And in that scenario, instead of being 1 in 100 chance of failed fertilization, it's more like 1 in 300 or 400. It still doesn't guarantee fertilization, because it may still be that the sperm was bad sperm, but it certainly reduces that risk. And that's why some people, some of my colleagues, regularly do when they're doing an IVF cycle, is to split half the eggs to ICSI, that sperm injection technique, and half of the eggs to allow nature to do what it needs to do. And that can give us more information, but it also may, in some situations, avoid the risk of failed fertilization of any eggs whatsoever. But ICSI is more invasive, it can damage eggs, and so we generally try and avoid it if we can. But there are situations where it is worth doing. From my experience, if you've had failed fertilization in one cycle, it's quite common in the next cycle, when we do ICSI, to actually end up with embryos. So don't lose heart that you've had one failed fertilization process. It's not a common problem. It's something we can do something about. And for instance, another maneuver that I often do when we have failed fertilization is to lengthen the time between the trigger injection and the egg collection, just in case it was immaturity of the eggs that caused the problem. So it's something that we've got to deal with. We do get into situations where, despite all the best efforts, we still can't get eggs to fertilize. There's something called in vitro activation of the egg and the sperm. Science has moving forward in that area, but it's not particularly well proven yet. I hope that answers the question.
So, Prof, we have another question. Do I need an intracytoplasmic sperm injection? You may have already addressed that.
Around the world, the use of the sperm injection technique varies a lot. There are some countries where almost 100% of cycles use ICSI, and there are other countries, Australia runs at about 60%, and there are some countries where it's as low as 35%. ICSI was originally designed for men with poor sperm, because we know when the sperm numbers are low, the chances of IVF working in the natural way, like putting sperm and egg together, is much, much lower. So ICSI was used as a means to get that single sperm into an egg when the male had very low sperm counts. That's where it started. Subsequently, it's become much more widespread in its use. The major proponents of ICSI would say that it's good to do because you avoid failed fertilization. But failed fertilization only occurs in 1%, maybe 2% at most of cycles. So to do it routinely for that small gain is debatable. And ICSI carries with it some risks to the egg because it's a traumatic procedure. You're sticking a needle through the membranes of the egg, and in the process of that, you may actually damage the egg. So, there are tiny risks associated with it. You're also, in a sense, defying nature, because nature works out in a normal fertilization situation which sperm is the best sperm to fertilize that egg, whereas we're relying on the scientist looking down the microscope to say, this is the best sperm, this is the nice, tall, dark, handsome, swimming sperm, and I'll choose that one to fertilize this egg. And it may not necessarily be the best sperm. Looking at them in that way is not totally definitive. But what ICSI has done is meant that many men who in 2 decades ago had to go to donor sperm to produce a baby because of their low sperm count, can now have the same chances of success as a man with normal sperm. So it certainly has its place. But there's still debate on how much it should be used and how little it should be used.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.